Welcome to Unapologetic Badasses, the online series. My name is Valerie Fuentes. I'm your host, and today I am with Kayla Rivera. She is the mind behind Strands Sparrows, which is one of my favorite accounts on Instagram these days. And I was so attracted to Kayla when I saw one of the videos that she has on YouTube sharing her story, because he was just so authentic, and like she showed, just pretty much her life in a video, and it moved me to tears. So I knew I had to have you. And I'm just so happy that you're here, because I know you're stretching into being on camera. So thank you so much for accepting that. And I know it's coming from a place of wanting to serve, which is, also my purpose is to serve this community. So I know this is a stretch for you. And so I'm so grateful that you're doing this because you want to serve the community. So thank you so much for accepting my invitation.
And thank you for having me.
Of course. So tell us a little bit about your journey for those of you who don't know you.
So I am 33 years old, and my hair loss started a decade ago. That's really weird to say, but at the age of 23, I gave birth to my son. And that's when I noticed that I started experiencing hair loss. Like most people, I thought it was just postpartum. I was kind of optimistic that my hair would grow back, took vitamins, things like that. And I noticed that I had probably more of a typical problem than postpartum hair loss. So that's when I just started to kind of look into remedies of how I can maybe help the situation out. And then it just, like I said, it spiraled out of control, and I kind of had no idea what to do for a while.
Mm-hmm. And so, and that's interesting, because for me personally, when I started losing my hair, I was in a not so healthy relationship. And so I thought that I was losing my hair because of that. So I also didn't make much of it. And when I was diagnosed, I was in complete denial and just decided, absolutely not. There is no way I have alopecia. You're crazy. And I just ignored it for a long time. And so when you say a decade, for me, I feel the same way, because for me, it's been over a decade. And I think like part of, I want to say at least half of it, it was just me being in denial and then just being really depressed. And then from that depression was me just choosing, I get to live with this or I'm going to die, because it was one or the other, pretty much. Yeah. So what was that process for you? At what point did you find out what it was and, accept it? And how did that work?
So I went to a couple of doctors. I had a series of blood work done, like my thyroid, my hormones. I had Googled online. Google definitely was different than now in terms of resources, but I had found a laser hair treatment company, and they had medical doctors there. And that's where I was told that I had androgenic alopecia. I was also kind of told that, there's like a cure for having androgenic alopecia. And the one thing that I tell people all the time is being vulnerable can really put you in a tough spot, because you're desperate to grow your hair back. If you don't know enough information, you kind of just take someone's word for it, especially if they have professional attached to their name. Mm-hmm. And I did a year of laser treatment. I went to the facility twice a week for a couple of hours. I was only supposed to use their shampoos, all of their products. And I spent over just about $3,500. And I was gung-ho, so excited. And then I was in a worse state of depression and just stress, because it didn't work out the way I had hoped or the way that it was promised for me to work. So after spending all that money, again, not knowing too much at the time, I didn't know anything about wigs. I didn't even know a topper existed. Honestly, at that point, I probably could have gotten away with a topper if I knew what that was. But after a while, I just got tired of being tired. I would wear my hair up all the time just to cover the bald spots. I couldn't wear my hair down. If I did, there was always at least one person who felt comfortable enough to approach me and say, hey, I can see your scalp from where I'm standing, and just being mortified. So for a long time, I wore my hair up. And then, I would get comments from people saying, well, if you're wearing your hair up all the time, you're going to put stress on your hair and you're just going to make it worse. But there was like no happy like medium, you know. It was
Mhm.
either wear it down and just feel shameful and worry about what people would say, or wear it up all the time and still, you know, get negative comments. But just one day I had enough. I started an Instagram account, and there were a couple of accounts that I had followed back then. I don't think the hair loss community was as big as it is now on Instagram, but following those women and just seeing their courage. I know one woman that I followed, she was completely bald, and she would wear a wig one day, and the next day she didn't wear a wig. So that just really encouraged me to kind of just look into the world of wigs and toppers. And I think generally there is a wig stigma out there. And after doing my research, again, everything's about research, just looking into the options you have and realizing, you know, like celebrities, everyday people, even culturally, you know, people wear wigs as a form of covering. And I had realized right then and there, you know what, there's probably so many women I've seen in front of me wearing a wig or extensions or toppers, and I never even knew it. So it was just really at that point deciding like I need to do this. And then I just started looking for someone or a place to go where I can find, you know, wigs. So
And so was there, you know, you said you were in at some point in some depression. Was there anything that helped you get out of depression?
yeah, so one thing, and it might sound really cliche, but it's like talking about it. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to shout it from the rooftops to people that you have hair loss, you're dealing with hair loss. But, you know, like talking to my husband, I remember I would tell my parents, and my mom and I are really close, and my siblings. And one day I actually showed my mom what I was talking about, because I covered up my hair loss pretty well, only to a certain point. And when I showed her my scalp, you know, as a mom, I can tell she got emotional because she
Mhm.
finally saw like what I was referring to. Like,
Mhm.
this isn't just something like in my head. And I'm not saying that she was saying, you know, saying or alluding to the fact that it was my head, but I think when people see it firsthand, it's like, you know, this is your reality.
Mhm.
So just talking to them, and like I said, you know, there were times that I would like cry in the shower all the time. I was really depressed over it. I would try to like stay in the bathroom as long as I could, because I wanted like my eyes to get back to normal so my husband wouldn't like be suspicious. But after a while, he would catch on, and, you know, things like showering, doing just everyday things, watching hair commercials for shampoo just became like so depressing.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, you know, that statement, tired of being tired, that's just at the point I was at.
Mhm.
Also, my faith, I'm a Christian, and my faith lies in, um, you know, scripture. And just because I'm a Christian, I'm not perfect. And
Mhm.
sometimes I have to be reminded of the truths that I believe and stand on. And that's kind of where Strands and Sparrows was birthed from. But really just the support of friends, family, you know, not anyone pushing me to like just go out there and tell the world about my hair loss, but just everyone being patient with me, even if it was from buying shampoos, trying to be helpful, you know, for me to use for my scalp, or offering to go with me to a wig shop or what have you. Just little things like that meant a great deal. And with time, you know, I obviously, it was easier to step out and also just start to conquer my fears, little by little. Like I said, I started losing hair 10 years ago. It wasn't really up until 5 years later that I finally found the courage to just even look, start looking for places to look for wigs. So
Mhm.
10-year process, but it took me 5 years to officially go out there and just, you know, conquer my fears. So
Yeah, same. I started wearing hair 5 years ago, I think. But for the longest time, I didn't. And what you were sharing about like your mom not even knowing, well, my mom did know, but I think that I also became so masterful at hiding it with fibers, sprays, and all the things that a lot of people didn't know for the longest time. But that doesn't mean that we don't know, right? Just because the rest of the world can't see it doesn't mean that we don't.
mhm.
We get to see it and we feel it and all those things. So, um, yeah, so I can totally relate to what you were saying. And so, at what point did you decide that you were gonna share on social media?
So I want to say I was, I'm trying to think here. I was like about 3 years into wig wearing, but even with wearing wigs, I still wasn't completely free from my hair loss. I just wore the wig as a cover up, but it still like bothered me. I still had the tears in the shower. I still had days where I was just depressed and just tired of not having my curly hair anymore. So like I said, just watching and listening to people on Instagram, and I knew that I didn't want this to be like something that would hold me back or keep me from living like a life of freedom, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to encourage other people and say, you're not what society says you are or what have you. But I really feel like you also need to practice what you preach. And I wanted to be that person that not only, it was easy to encourage people, but I also wanted to be the proof of that encouragement. So I forgot. What was the question again? I'm so sorry.
Well, at what point did you decide to start talking about it on social media?
Okay, so I actually had opened up to a couple friends, and I actually shared on my Instagram page too that I actually sent an email to my husband. I've always been the kind of person that I express myself better on paper, and I sent a message to my husband just letting him know this was a year or two before I even started my page that I wanted to be open, to strangers on social media, just to see if it would help me, get encouragement, and hopefully one day I would be that encouragement to other people. It wasn't until like 2 years later I remember thinking like, well, what am I going to call the page? What am I going to call myself? And like I said, for me, it was the scripture in the Bible, Matthew 10:29-31, where it talks about how God knows every sparrow and he takes care of them, and he knows every hair that's numbered on your head. And for me, that just, spoke volumes and encouraged me to know that, what, with or without hair, I am fully known. And it just validated, I am not the statement, I am not my hair. So I created the page. I remember starting my first post and literally typing, deleting, saying I'm going to press send and share it, and just freaking out, being completely nervous. And I just remember posting the first post, and it wasn't even about my hair loss. It was mentioning I had hair loss, but I still didn't share with anyone about it till I think like a week or two later. And I remember walking away from my phone and just being petrified with, the fear of the unknown, the fear of people online. We know there's social media bullying, and it's easy to say things behind the camera or behind the screen. But yeah, it was just really friends and family who encouraged me to just do it. And like I said, I knew I wanted to do it, but I didn't really create that until like a year or two later. So even then, that was a process for me just to step out of my comfort zone.
Right. And where are you at right now? How do you feel today?
I feel amazing. I know people say I've actually had people message me and tell me that sometimes my posts seem like too optimistic, like dealing with hair loss is an easy thing. And I honestly don't want it to be like it's an easy thing. I mean, truthfully, I've met people who they experience hair loss, and a month later they're like, you know what, I'm gonna buzz my hair, and they're cool with it and they're fine. And then there's people who, and maybe it took them 12 years to get over their hair loss. For me, it took 5 years just to even start wearing wigs, and then it took another 3 or 4 years for me to transition from wearing the same color wig every day to wearing different styles and colors. So the journey really is, it's not cookie cutter. It's not the same for everyone. And where I am now is completely free. I went out, was it last March? I gave away my secret, and I told everyone that, about my hair loss, wearing wigs. I also thanked the people that maybe noticed, and didn't say anything or make me feel bad, and just taking it as an opportunity to, encourage people. I remember seeing September being Alopecia Awareness Month, and I would always say, I want to be that person. I want to let people know, like, hey, it's Alopecia Awareness Month. I have alopecia, but it's not a big deal. Like, you know, you can still live a fruitful life and you can live life to the fullest without hair. So it's definitely freeing. And I just love that it's not a secret anymore. You know what I mean? It's a part of who I am. It's something that I didn't ask for. It's not something that I ever planned to deal with. But I am just, you know, I'm in a free state of mind right now. So
Yeah. I love that story. So for me, it was kind of the same. I think the year, which was, I think it was last year, that I decided to speak about it. I knew I was going to do it from the beginning of the year, but I was also like, I'm just going to wait until September. And then September comes and first week goes by and I'm like, I don't know. And then, but it was like you said, so I knew that I couldn't serve the women in this community without me talking about it. Like, how can I, like, I was already a coach, but I wasn't coaching women in this community. But my thought was, how can I tell you to be authentic and vulnerable and open and, you know, love yourself if I'm not doing the same thing? So it felt inauthentic for me to not do it. And that's when I decided, you know what, like, this is it. You know, in order to help this community, I have to, you know, let go of my own stuff and just go for it. And that was like really my biggest motivation, was literally to serve this community, because I've seen so many, you know, women just being almost suicidal because of it, and I want this to stop. And like you said also in the beginning of the interview, I started learning that there are also, like you said, so many cultures that just wear wigs. It's normal. Somebody came up to me the other day and she said, oh my God, you need to reach out to the Jewish community. I have a lot of friends that wear wigs. And I'm like, excuse me? I didn't even know that that was a thing. So yeah, so I'm learning that, and I'm hoping with time, also because celebrities and, you know, a lot of people just do it because it's beautiful. I mean, it looks beautiful. That more and more people that don't have hair loss are also going to be wearing hair. I really think that this is where this is going. Just
well,
like,
I tell people too that honestly, even if my hair, like if say magically one day I woke up and my hair grew back, I honestly would still keep on wearing wigs just because they're versatile. You can change your length, color. You know, a lot of people wear wigs too, maybe because they don't necessarily have alopecia, but because they put dye, you know, all this dye in their hair, the extensions. I can't tell you how many messages I get from women who say like the extensions, you know, they start to fray and thin their hair. But honestly, if I can say with the fullest confidence, if my hair ever grew back magically, like I would still wear wigs because they're just fun. They're awesome. So
yeah. So if you had the opportunity to go back in time, what would you do differently, knowing what you know now?
definitely would probably wear toppers. I, like I said, I didn't even know they were a thing. And truthfully, when I thought of the idea of wigs, part of me having like believing into like the wig stigma was I was thinking like older woman wigs, you know, like all wigs are gray and silver and short and poofy and they're not like stylish whatsoever. Or I just had like a Halloween wig in my head for some reason, like all wigs are alike. And like I said, like education is key because while people do have really good intentions, and I tell people this too when they ask me for advice, I'm more than happy to give you off of my experience what I know at the moment. I don't, you know, consider myself an expertise whatsoever. But education is key, and just, you know, doing your research, you know, don't be afraid to go around and ask people. If you follow people in the community, messaging them and say, hey, I noticed that you wear a wig from particular, you know, place, or I like this wig on you. Can you give me like your 100%? You know, like how you feel about the wig, and just getting as much information as possible because, you know, you want to find a good wig. You know, you want to find something that's going to make you feel good and you don't want to be taken advantage of. You know, unfortunately, people look at a vulnerable person, and I think, especially early on, I know I had like vulnerable stamps on my forehead. and people saw it. And, unfortunately, like I said, I didn't know enough. But the one thing I probably would do is I would have probably looked into toppers early on, and at least started there. I think I probably would have dealt with less, like, I probably would have gotten out of like my depression or living a little more freely if I had started to wear toppers early on, but who knows? So
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day that, that experience is what made us stronger. So I also think that, my purpose with doing everything I'm doing and serving this community is to help make the length of time shorter, because I don't want anybody to spend 10 years of their life obsessing on their hair. But I do think that we all have to go through that process, right? Like that's what's going to build you to be able to live with it for the rest of your life. You have to go through that process. Because it's also not good to just mask the process, like to get a wig. Yeah, you can get 300 wigs if you want, but if you don't process what's happening, if you don't, learn to love yourself and, manage that, that practice of looking in the mirror and knowing that you're beautiful and amazing, and it has nothing to do with your hair. Like until you get to that place, like getting hair is really not a solution. I think it helps you to manage life, but you're not going to be fully, I don't know, comfortable with yourself until you actually process all that. So I think it's beautiful that, that you still get to go through that process. I tell people all the time, like, you have to feel your feelings. You can't just pretend that this doesn't hurt. Like when people say like, oh, it's just hair. It's like, no, it's not. I think on the last summit, one of the speakers, he had a beautiful quote. He said something like that your hair was linked to your heart or something like that. And it's so true that it's still part of you. And we can make wigs and toppers accessories, because I do believe that it gets to a point like you're treated like an accessory, right? It's like wearing a pair of earrings or some rings or whatever. But yes, you can get to that point, but that doesn't mean that your own hair, it's not part of you, because it still is. And you're still you have to feel the loss, because it's like losing something. So
definitely. And
go ahead.
No, I was going to say too, you're saying how I also like to compare like a wig, like a smile, like a lot of people smile and they laugh, but you really don't know what's going on in the inner part, the innermost part of someone. So like you said, you can have the most expensive wigs, the most colorful wigs, have all the options in the world. But if you're, really not free from it and accepting of it, from within, then it's just literally just that it's a cover up, and nothing more. So I, like you said, I definitely, my thing is I don't just want women to feel comfortable with wearing wigs or toppers, whatever they choose, even if it's not wearing anything at all. Just learning to, and I know it sounds hard to swallow with the word acceptance, because it's like you're settling and you're not trying to fix the problem, where honestly, depending on your, type of alopecia, you can't necessarily fix it. There's nothing to reverse it. But if you're willing to just, accept it from within first, then, everything else, it doesn't matter. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, what are your favorite accounts right now?
So some of my favorite accounts, Lost Not Lost, Kristen. I love her to death. I love that she not only talks about hair loss and wigs and what have you, but she also has a really, really lovely online boutique. And just like we were talking about wigs being an accessory, you can accessorize in other ways too. And I just love her heart. She's very genuine. I love her. I love the Strandy, who actually just opened up Silk or Lace. Her heart for the community is very evident, and I just love everything that she's doing right now. I also love Jen, currently Jen. She's in Canada. She's a great person. She's actually one of the first people, her and Faux Hair Flair, Dawn, they were literally like one of the first set of people that welcomed me into the community and made me feel really welcome. So those are a few people that I can think of right now that I really, really enjoy talking to, and that have really been an asset in my journey as well early on.
Awesome. I've been asking that question because I think we all have, that one person that we looked up to before we even started talking about it. So was there somebody that inspired you, like before you started? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually what I wanted to say too, because I would feel terrible. It's like, there's a lot of people that I really love talking to. I have people that I talk to on a regular basis, but Ing, I don't know what her suffix is of her page, but it's INGE. And her and Hair Loss Diaries, they were the two pages that I actually started following before I even started my hair page. I was like that stalker follower that really didn't comment, but I would just and admire and just be like, I want to be like her, one day. So those two people, and also, oh my gosh, Life on a Strand. I think she's in England, if I'm not mistaken. She actually just had a beautiful baby girl. But she was another person that really inspired me and encouraged me. And I actually did set up posts and was sure to let them know, because I think it's important to, just let the people know. Because I think sometimes, I know sometimes I question, is what I'm doing worth it, type of thing, or what have you. And I think it's important just to let people know. It's just we like to encourage people. Sometimes we just need to, know that we're where we need to be and we're doing what we're, I guess you can say, called to do. So, but those 3 accounts were definitely a big, big inspiration for me.
Yeah, thank you. And I love that you mentioned that. And I've been encouraging everybody so I was one of those people, I don't want to say for years, but for a minute that I was not stalking, but I just consuming. He was consuming, reading. And I think what's so magical about this community is the support, right? So I really invite you that if you're consuming right now and you're not supporting, go for it. Like, for every post that you make, go comment on 3 posts and really start becoming part of the community, because that's what makes us stronger at the end. And that's what has made me not feel alone, is that I know I have you guys. It's I have so many people right now, so many friends that I've in communication all the time. Like, Amber is one of them. I feel like I talk to her every day, and I haven't even met her once. But it's like, that's just what comes out of this interaction. It's like you can really find real friends that are going through the same thing. So yeah, stop consuming. I want you to interact, comment, support each other. I think it's so cool when somebody comes up with a new wig or a new topper, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, it's beautiful! Where'd you get it?" And everybody celebrates. I think that really makes my day. So I really invite everybody to really support each other and not just read. Just make sure to support your sisters.
Exactly. I concur.
Yeah. So we're coming to the end of our time together. What is one thing that you would like to leave us with?
I might sound redundant, but I always like to add hashtag never say never. You are not your hair. You are not alone. I think especially during quarantine with everything going on, people staying home and then having to deal with hair loss. I think the positive thing with the quarantine thing is I think a lot of people have been on social media and they're seeing that there is a community out there. There are people like them. And, you're not isolated, you're not alone. And literally just to take each day as it comes, where I am now, I wouldn't have imagined being here talking to you, you know, well, even last year, I mean, I've done so many things in terms of like my hair bucket list. I have a hair bucket list of just goals and things that I want to do. So I encourage you guys, you know, even if you like to journal, just write the things down that you know, you want to accomplish, the things that you no longer want to be like a burden in your life when it comes to hair loss. And just write those things down and don't count yourself out. I tell people that all the time. Don't count yourself out, because I promise you that there was no way that I would have ever thought I would have wore a wig. I wore wigs. I wore the same wig for a while, same color, because I wanted to look, you know, I wanted to camouflage the issue. I didn't want it to be obvious that I was wearing a wig. And, you know, I said I would never go swimming, you know, without a wig, because I didn't want anyone to see my head. And that was something that I did. You know, amusement park rides. I thought I would never go on an amusement park ride. I love rides. And I just did that last year. So like I said, although it's been a 10-year process for me, I haven't fully arrived. I'm a lot closer to where I want to be in terms of being 100% with my goals. But it definitely is a process. Don't count yourself out. You don't know where you'll be a day, a week, a month, a year from now. You might be in a completely better place, and you'll look back and you'll remember the struggle. You'll remember the tears. You'll remember the times that you brushed your hair and it just weighed heavily on you. But I promise that it does get easier with time. Be patient, be gracious, be kind to yourself. I think we can tend to be our own worst enemy. I remember saying things to myself that I would have never said to another human being, you know, in the mirror, crying as I'm saying it to myself, saying horrible things to myself. And, you know, just be kind to yourself, gracious, patient, and reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out. And again, just know that you are not alone, and we are here. We may not be physically, like you said, with each other, but we are on the sidelines, encouraging and, you know, just cheering you on. And if I can be where I am now, then there's no difference for you either. So
Exactly. That's so important. That's something that I really want to emphasize, is that we're not special. I'm not special. Nobody in the show is special. If we can do it, you can too. So like that's so key. Thank you for saying that. Um and there was one more thing that you just said that I thought it was so perfect. Gosh, I lost it. Sorry. But anyways, thank you so much for everything you're doing. I can really feel that everything you're doing is from your heart, and like you really want to serve the community. Like that was the main thing when I went into your account, that I'm like, wow, like you really have a big heart. So thank you, Kayla, for being here, and for doing what you're doing, for sharing your story. And I'll see you guys on the next interview.
thank you guys for having me. Nice talking to you.